Hey guys, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. It's Lauren here. So I was out for the day and I had Neiman's car and I swung by and I picked up some awesome nightstands for $10 for the pair from Facebook Marketplace. And luckily I had just enough room for these nightstands. And I just want to show you guys how easy it is to get started, even if you don't have all of the tools. If you've got a little small car, I want to show you how easy it is to begin furniture flipping. So let's get these guys unloaded. So knowing that Neiman has a pretty small car, just a Chevy Cruze, I knew that when I was looking on Facebook Marketplace, I was gonna have to get something small if I was going to get something. But even though I was limited with room, I wasn't limited on my piece because I can still flip these nightstands for a great profit, even though they are smaller. I tried to fit both of them back there in the trunk, but there wasn't quite enough room. So I utilized the front seat. You gotta do what you gotta do. If you've got a small car, it's not an excuse not to get started furniture flipping. So like I said, I got these for $10 on Facebook Marketplace. So when I loaded them up in Neiman's car, we sparked an idea that we wanted to show you guys as beginning furniture flippers that it is easy peasy. And these were a perfect piece to show you guys the 4 P's of furniture flipping. That's right, the 4 P's of furniture flipping. Neiman and I were talking, discussing content ideas, and I spurred up this thought and I said, wait, piece, products, process, and profit. So those are the 4 P's. Stick around and I will explain every single P. We started with the piece. The piece does not have to be a big buy-in. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money to get quality furniture. You also want to be looking for smaller pieces when you're starting out, because if you're gonna go for a huge dresser or a kitchen table or a chest or whatever, those are just too big to start out. If you're learning, you need to start smaller. So that's why I knew these 2 nightstands would be perfect to show you guys how to get started. So now that we've talked about the piece, we've got to talk about the products next. That's P number 2, products. So for products, I thought that it would be fun if we headed out to a home improvement store, Lowe's. I personally do not shop at Lowe's. I've been there a few times, but I don't get my materials from there. So I wanted to put myself in your shoes. Maybe you've never been to a home improvement store, and Lowe's are everywhere. So you guys can find a Lowe's. I'm gonna go to Lowe's and we're gonna pick out some products. I'm gonna be specifically looking for furniture painting products like paint, sandpaper, primer, a brush, and so on. So we're gonna head over to Lowe's and see what we can find. All right, so we made it to Lowe's here, and this is my first time looking for chalk paint, furniture paint, anything like that at Lowe's. I've been here before, but generally Menards or online is my go-to for the furniture paint or the chalk paint. But I wanted to do some unfamiliar territory because some of you guys are just starting out, and I wanted to show you that beginners can find what they are looking for anywhere they go. I'm gonna check out what they've got for furniture paint, chalk paint, and the like. All right, we checked up and down a couple of aisles and we finally came to the cabinet and furniture paint. They've got some Krylon and they've got some Valspar, which I've seen people use both of these brands, and so I'm familiar a little bit, but I personally have never used those before. So the Krylon is chalk paint, and that is about 20 bucks for a 32-ounce can. And then they've also got some spray paint colors and such. And then you can also tint the colors if you would like. You can do dark tints, light tints. They have tints at the counter. And then the Valspar down here is some cabinet and furniture paint. And this isn't chalk paint. It's a little bit different than something that I've normally used. It's $25. But I know that there's a mist tint area, and so I'm gonna check that out before I even grab this. I just wanna see if there's any colors up there in maybe the cabinet and furniture, maybe the Krylon that got mistinted. Mistinted just means that someone wanted a color, but then the people accidentally tinted it the wrong color. So they put it in this little section. They've got that at Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, all of it. And if it's got a mistint, it's marked way, way, way cheap. So I'm gonna go check that out before I grab this. But I think no matter what, I wanna go with the Valspar. It is $26, but keep in mind that with the Valspar, you don't have to have a top coat. You don't have to have the primer even. So keep that in mind. I always like to prime to prep right, but you don't technically need it. Let's go check the mist tints. Okay, so this looks like their mist tint section. Usually it's gonna be right next to where they mix the paint. So I'm gonna check out and see what they've got here. Lots of just interior, exterior paint, primers. Oh, magnetic primer, interesting. Okay, so they've got things like ultra interior paint and primer. I personally wouldn't recommend doing the latex paint just because it's not really meant for furniture. Let's check this one. Oh, cabinet and furniture. Now we're looking for a neutral color because I'm going to be doing those 2 nightstands and I want them to sell quick and I want them to be very modern. And so, ooh, this color is a gray. Gray is neutral. So do you see that? $2.50. Or a brand new can that I can choose a color for $26. I think I'm gonna go with the $2.50. That is gonna really help me with my profit later. So always check out the mist tint. It might not have it, but any day they might make a mist tint. So might as well check it out. Now we need some brushes. Okay, so there's so many brushes to choose from, and really right now we're just trying to go cheap. Brushes matter, but if you're just starting out, I would recommend just getting kind of a cheaper brush to see if you're gonna continue to stick with it. I personally like the angled ones and the short ones that you can just hold on to in your hand. These ones are cool because you can just open and kind of check it out, give it a feel. This one says that it's specifically good for latex stains and paints, which this isn't a latex paint, so I mean, I think it would still look fine. I would recommend just kind of going with a cheaper brush. This brush is $6.50, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and grab this brush, and this will be good for the entire nightstand. I don't need more than one brush. Obviously, if you're gonna continue to do this and you wanna be more time efficient, you can get the furniture brushes, like Zebra is a really great brand. You can find those at Home Depot or online, and they have tons of different styles of brushes that help you get into corners, that help you get in around spindles and different things like that. But to just start out, to keep it cheap, we're gonna go with a $6 brush. Okay, we're gonna check out the primer now. And I know that I said that this paint doesn't need primer, but guys, you have to prep your piece well if it's going to hold up well. So I say, when in doubt, prime it out because it's gonna help the paint stick on there much better. Now, obviously, primer is gonna be a little bit of an extra cost for us, but that's gonna help us not use as much paint. And in the long run, when you're selling these pieces, you want them to be durable and quality finish. So we're gonna go and check out some primer. The primer was just an aisle over, so we found it here pretty quick. And they have got Kills primer, and they've also got some bin primer. So for the Kills, this is going to be, okay, so if it's water-based, then that does not have shellac in it. And the shellac is really gonna help you block your stains if you've got solid wood. My pieces are not solid wood, so I'm not worried about the stain popping through. However, I just always like to grab the shellac base because it just, if I need it on another piece, then I have it already, and it's right around the same price. It's $10 for an entire can. You will not use an entire can on one piece. This is gonna be an additional cost, like I said, but it's totally worth it and it's necessary. Then I also like to go and grab a cheaper brush, like $1 or $2 that you can just toss, because primer is pretty hard to clean up when you're using the oil base. You can use ammonia and all of that, but I just honestly like to toss it after 1 or 2 uses. $3, but that's fine. Another thing you might need for your furniture flipping is wood filler. The particular pieces that I'm flipping are really low maintenance, which I would highly recommend when you're first starting out. Not only did I get them for cheap, but I got them and they are in really good shape, so they don't need a lot of work. But if you are gonna replace the hardware or anything like that, you need to grab some wood filler as well. I'm gonna skip this step, but that's an option as well. The last thing that I'm gonna check out is the sandpaper. Alrighty, sandpaper. You can choose to invest in a sander, or for your first flip, maybe you just want to get some sandpaper, maybe a hand sander. So this actually is really cool. It's a hand sander and it rotates. So kind of grab it like that, and then if you want to go this way, you could do that way. If you want to go this way, you could go that way. That's kind of neat. And you just attach the sandpaper there to the bottom. You want to talk about grits of sandpaper. What you're going to want to do is, if you're trying to strip it down all the way to the base level, you're going to want to use a smaller grit, so a 60 to an 80 grit of sandpaper to strip everything down if you're trying to remove the finish. If you're just starting out, I would recommend that you don't worry about removing the finish, but you just work on scuff sanding. Scuff sanding is just going to get that top layer off and scuff it up a little bit. Make it a little bit rougher so that the primer can adhere to the piece. I'll show you what I'm talking about a little bit later, and I'll go into more depth about the sandpaper grit. But I think today I am going to grab this, which is $10. So this one actually comes with a 120 sand grit, but there's only one piece in there. So I'm gonna grab some 120 to replace when I may need some more. And then that's all we got. So we've got sandpaper, a hand sander, a couple brushes, some paint, and some primer. Let's go check out how much damage we did. So this should just be the 250 because it's a mist tint. 250. This one. I'll just take it off. And go ahead. 38.36. All right, we got the goods. All right, so we made it back to the car, but let's just talk about all of our pricing. So you guys saw the total, it was $38, but she did actually ring up this one as a full price, and then I kind of pointed out that it was $250, but with the full price, our whole bill would have been that $61. And guys, $61 to get started with furniture flipping really is not that bad. Even if you had to grab some wood filler and some top coat, you could still keep your cost under $100 to get started. And these materials are not only good for one project, but they should continue to last you through at least 2 or 3. And then once you get the profit from your first, second, and third flips, you can continue to reinvest that money into your business, and then you won't be spending any more of your own money. It's just a really small investment up front to continue to earn more and more. I guess at the end of the day, she did end up giving me this for free because I had told her, oh, it was $250, and she's like, I'll just take it off. So I got some paint for free today. That was totally accidental. That could happen to any of you. If it happens, then that's awesome. So it's even less of an investment up front. We're gonna head home now and get started. Alrighty, we are back from Lowe's, and I just want to do a quick recap of the products that we picked up. So I got the paint, cabinet and furniture paint from Valspar. Never used it before, ended up getting it for free. Also got the primer, and that is just going to help the paint adhere. We got a hand sander and some backup sandpaper. And we got 2 brushes, all for just $38. And again, if we would have paid full price for this, our total would have been right around $60. With the $38 spent at Lowe's and the $10 with the nightstands, that puts us at a total of just $48 that we are invested into this project. And our goal is to keep it the lowest cost possible because we want to earn back our investment as well as earn enough profit to continue investing it back into our flipping business. It's time for P number 3. The process. Let's flip some furniture. First step in our process is to remove the hardware and clean. I didn't pick up Dawn dish soap or a screwdriver at Lowe's because I figure that most of us have some soap and a Phillips head screwdriver. If you don't have that, then you can pick up a pretty cheap screwdriver at Lowe's as well as some Dawn dish soap. When you're picking out your cleaning product, you can do Dawn dish soap because it is a grease cutter. You can also do any other grease cutting cleaners. Let's get this hardware off. If you have a drill already, that would be a little bit of a faster way, but I know most of us have a screwdriver, so that's why I am showing you that it can also be done with that. For the hardware's sake, I am going to actually be replacing the hardware, and I picked up some hardware actually off of a previous piece of furniture that I flipped. So once you continue to get some flips under your belt, and maybe you start replacing some hardware that you buy online or that you find at thrift stores or the Restore, you can also reuse different hardware from previous furniture flips. The best part about the hardware that I'm going to be putting on this is that I got that piece of furniture for free, so therefore the hardware was free. If you haven't already, be sure to go check out the entertainment center video that we did last week, and I got some burlap and I just transformed that look completely. That was a really fun flip, so check it out if you haven't already. Okay, now that we've got our hardware off, we're gonna set that aside and then we're gonna get to cleaning. So like I said, I'm gonna be using some Dawn dish soap for step number 2 of the process. I got some warm water in here, and then I've got a bucket. I use this 2-sided bucket because it's nice to have a clean side after you clean the first time, and then you can go back and rinse. If you just got any bucket or even a bowl laying around your house, that will be perfect for cleaning. The reason we want to clean is because you normally get these pieces off of Facebook Marketplace or thrift stores, basically secondhand. So if you're getting secondhand furniture, you have no knowledge of where it was before. So you need to get all of that dirt, dust, grime, and everything off so that the paint can then adhere, and then so that you know that you are going to be selling clean furniture. Okay, so now that we've got everything cleaned, we're gonna go back and rinse, and that's where that second side of the bucket comes in. Now these nightstands weren't too dirty, so our water's not very dirty, but that soap is still on our piece, so we need to go ahead and wipe that off with a clean rag, because we don't want our paint sticking to the soap either. We want it sticking to the actual surface. I'm really happy with the way that these nightstands look because they really don't need a lot of prep work. You want to start out with an easy piece. We're going back to the P for piece in the beginning because I forgot to talk to you guys about how these pieces are going to be easy to flip because there's minimal work that needs to be done. I've sometimes gotten into the thought that I just need to get a piece of furniture and it doesn't matter how much work it has, I just need furniture, but then those pieces just take forever to fix and all of that stuff. And so if you're just starting out, just go easy on yourself. Get something small, get something that doesn't need a lot of work. A lot of repair work just takes longer. Starting small like this will help reduce the discouragement that might come along with more and more prep work and more repair work. Okay, so we've come to step number 3 of the process, which is to sand it down. There's a little bit of water damage on the top of this nightstand. It's really hard to even see, but there are some bumps, and you can feel this by just running your hand over the top of the furniture. These nightstands particularly are not solid wood, so it's pretty common that they get water damage on the top, and that can be solved by just a light sand on the top and then put some primer over it to block in those particle board pieces, and then it'll be ready to paint. So I've got my hand sander that I picked up from Lowe's, and it's got the 120 grit, which is a medium grit of sandpaper. And that is gonna be perfectly fine because I'm not trying to take off the finish. I am just trying to smooth out where there were some water stains. You might use an 80 grit or a 60 grit, which is a heavier grit of sandpaper if you're trying to go down. If these were solid wood and I wanted to save this and I wanted to get the finish completely off, then I would use a lower grit of sandpaper. But since I'm just trying to do surface level things, a medium grit will be perfect. When you start to sand on these particle board pieces, it will really show you where the water damage is. And so you just need to really make sure that that gets all smoothed out before you put any primer on. Okay, and not only am I gonna sand down the top, I'm also gonna scuff sand the sides. And a scuff sand just means that you're kinda gonna smooth everything out, roughen up the surface just a little bit, because when it's so smooth, it's really hard for the paint to adhere. But if you give it a little bit of texture, that primer and paint will adhere much better. Prep is gonna be your best friend when it comes to furniture flipping, because if you don't prep your piece correctly, it's not gonna be as durable as it should be in the long run. If you guys have any questions about the piece, the product, the process so far, let me know down in the comments. I will do my best to respond to every single comment and help you guys out, because I truly want this to be a beginner-friendly video, and I am here to help you and answer any questions that you've got. Now's a good time to go ahead and take the drawers out and set them aside to get ready for priming. We're all sanded down, so now we've got to wipe back all of the dust that the sanding created. All right, so as a beginner, you might want to protect your workspace. So you could just grab some old cardboard. Everybody gets deliveries. You may have some old cardboard or an old sheet or whatever you want to do to protect your workspace. I've got these nightstands on here and I've got the drawers out. So we're gonna prime. All right, so we've got our Kills primer that we are going to use to prime these guys. And I have a little fancy paint can opener that you can get for like 40 cents at a hardware store. If you don't have one, you can always use a flathead screwdriver to pop it off. Open up our brush. So here goes step 4, prime time. All right, step number 4 of the process is complete. I really barely even used any primer, about that much. So this $11 can is gonna last me for multiple projects, but we'll still factor in the price of the whole can since I did buy it for this project. This particular primer needs about an hour of dry time before we put any coats on it, so we're gonna let that dry. And we're back to step number 5 because the primer is dry, so we've gotta do a light sanding to smooth everything out before we get to the paint. One thing that I did forget to grab while we were at Lowe's was a little bit of a finer grit of sandpaper. And this is just a sanding block that I recommend you also pick up. It's a fine grit, so it's above a 180. I believe this is a 220 sanding block, and what that is going to do is that's going to smooth out the primer so that we can kind of eliminate all of the texture that's on there and get it ready to paint. All right, and once we've got the sanding done, we'll go ahead and use a rag and wipe back all of the dust that was made. We are ready for step number 6, which is to paint. Painting is my favorite part, and I think that you guys will see why when you guys get started flipping. It's really truly the part where the pieces or piece that you're flipping transforms into its new identity and its new life and its new look. So let's get some paint on it. So we are on to step number 6, painting. If you remember, I got this paint at Lowe's and they ended up giving it to me for free. I was really planning on going with a neutral color when I was originally thinking about what design I wanted to go for on these nightstands. So I was super excited when I found this mist tint color in the mist tint section. It is a gray and it kind of looks like a little bit of a medium gray. It's not too dark, but it's not too light. So I'm excited to pop this can open and check it out. Ooh, and it's kind of, almost looks like a grayish, which is like a gray and beige color. But we'll see actually when it's on the piece and when it dries what the true color is. One thing I recommend you get is a paint stir stick. They've got these smaller ones, or they give them to you for free if you get mixed paint at the hardware store. So definitely pick some of those up. And then grab a separate container for your paint. I use cottage cheese containers. They also have specific containers that look just like this at paint stores that you could also get. And then you want to just separate your paint so that way no foreign objects get into your paint can. And then I've got my brush that I picked up at Lowe's as well. Alrighty, we're ready to paint. Depending on what type of paint you use, you'll either water it down or not water it down. This specific paint is not chalk paint or anything like that, so we won't be watering it down, but we'll just be painting it straight on as is. So let's check it out. When you're painting, a part of the process is to go all in the same direction. You know, at first you can kind of start to go this way, but make sure that you always come back over your top and paint in the same direction, because if you do end up with some brush strokes, which is gonna happen, then you want them to be all going in the same direction, not a bunch of this like you painted it. You want it to go on nice and smooth. This paint is definitely a different consistency than I've ever used before, but it's nice. I like it. It goes on nice and easy, nice and smooth, and then it looks like it might even be pretty much self-leveling paint, so that means that it'll kind of even out and have less brush strokes, which is always a plus when you are looking at paint. All right, we're almost done here with the first coat. And just one thing that you really want to be careful with when you're doing the first coat and even the second coat is to be watching out for any drips that you may see, because drips can definitely cause issues, and then you have to sand and repaint and all of that stuff. So really try to avoid those drips, and you just basically need to kind of go slower, especially when you're first starting out, so that you can see what you are doing. Our first coat here is finished. We've still also got a little bit of primer popping through, which is okay. It gets worse before it gets better. Trust me, I was there. I was like, what in the world? But I promise it gets better. The more paint you put on, the better it looks. So we're gonna let this dry overnight. It's getting dark. Sometimes flips can only take 1 day, but sometimes it may take 2 days. Over time, you'll get faster and faster. Be gentle with yourself. Be patient with yourself. Don't expect to get everything right on the first time. We'll be back tomorrow for coat number 2, and that is going to be step number 7 of P number 3, the process. We're back for step number 7, which is going to be the second coat of paint. I actually put my paint inside of a plastic bag so that I didn't have to pour this back in the can. And I also saved my brush. I really hate washing brushes, so I try as best I can to save the amount of times that I need to wash, and you can do that by eliminating the air that gets to your brush, putting it into a plastic bag or even a grocery sack. That will help eliminate the airflow to the brush and keep it nice and wet. Before I get to coat number 2, I'm gonna take my same sanding block that I used earlier for the primer, and I'm gonna smooth out everything, and then we'll get on to some paint. You really, on coat number 2, need to focus on going in the same direction with your brush. You do in the first coat as well, but this second coat, you need to be a lot more careful with how your finish looks, meaning everything needs to go in the same direction. All right. Coat number 2, step number 7 of the process is complete. And now while we wait for this to dry, we're gonna go check out what hardware we're gonna put on it. Got my hardware stash here. Whoops. And so, like I said before, I am going to be utilizing some hardware that I got off of a free piece of furniture that I flipped a couple weeks ago. So it looks like this, and I love this classic brushed nickel feel of the hardware. These knobs are pretty neutral and can be used with white, black, gray, anything. I thought about actually spray painting it, which is another tip that I want to tell you. If you have hardware that you like the look of, but maybe you want to change the color, you can always spray paint it with the Rust-Oleum spray paint. There's metallic colors, which is kind of the look of hardware, and then you just put a little top coat spray paint on it as well. But I've got my 4 hardware pieces right here, and we're gonna go ahead and attach them for step number 8 of the process. Usually step number 8 would actually be the top coat, but since the top coat is built into this paint, I'm gonna skip that step. So step number 8 is the hardware. Take the drawer. So I like to go ahead and slide it in nice and carefully. Gotta line it up on the tracks. Perfect. And then we will take the screws, put them in, and get them started here. Pull that drawer in. Same thing with drawer number 2. Alrighty. Step number 8 is all finished. So we're on to step number 9 of the process, which is staging. When it comes to staging, you don't need to go all out. If you're just starting out, I would recommend you just take some things around your house that will kind of match and complement the piece that you painted. So for instance, I grabbed a lamp, I grabbed a plant, and I grabbed a book, and I grabbed a house. So it's nothing crazy. I'm just gonna stage it to where it's, again, not too much, because the point of staging is simply to allow the customer or the buyer to imagine it in their own home, and that it's not just in someone's garage with a whole bunch of stuff around it. If you have a nice background, even if you don't have a staging wall like I do, you can just do any blank wall in your house, and then you're gonna want to take some photos. The most important part of photos is to have excellent lighting. Usually the daylight is the best type of lighting for taking pictures of your furniture. So for example, today is an amazing day for taking photos because the clouds are masking the sun just a little bit, giving us that soft light. We don't have any harsh light coming in, harsh shadows on our pieces. So we are getting some excellent lighting in here. Soft light is great for capturing the even lighting on your pieces, which then helps show the true color, and again, people can imagine it in their own home. When you're taking photos, you really want to focus on as many angles as you possibly can. You want to stage it and take the photos, and then you want to unstage it and take more photos. You want to open up the drawers and take photos. You want to take photos of the top, of the sides. Prove to the buyer, the potential buyers, that there is nothing wrong with the piece. There's no scratches, there's no dents, the doors open nicely, etc., etc. The more information, the better. The more angles, the better. Specifically on Facebook Marketplace, you can only post 10 photos, and I recommend that you try to utilize all 10 of those photo slots so that they can see that these two pieces are the perfect match for their home. All right, and now we come to posting. So step number 11 of the process. This is the last step before we get to P number 4, which is my favorite. Well, I already said the painting was my favorite, but the profit, that is the best part of this, guys. So the one thing that I'm going to tell you that you have to have when you are posting it on market is to measure. You have to have the measurements of the pieces. There's a couple of reasons. First reason is so that they can see if it's going to fit in their vehicle. And the second reason is so that they can see if it's going to fit in their space. If it's not going to fit in their vehicle, maybe you could offer delivery if you have a vehicle that could fit. Or if they don't, then that would maybe turn them away from wanting to get these pieces. These in particular are small pieces, so they should fit in any car as we showed you in the beginning, but you always want to have those measurements because maybe it's too wide to fit next to their bedside and so on and so forth. So 20, 23 by 16. So when you're posting, you also want to make sure that you give them the most information that you can about the product. Personally, I do not say that it is a refinished piece of furniture. If they specifically ask in a message, then of course I'm not going to lie, but I don't see any reason for you to say that this is a refurbished or this is a painted piece or anything along those lines. Just display the images and give it a description. So for instance, these I might say, these are a perfect addition to any bedroom or bedside, and it is very neutral and they are gray. perfect for a modern home, smoke-free, pet-free, etc., etc., etc. The more information you can give them, again, is going to make that decision for them so much easier in the end. They can decide if they want to buy it or not based on the information that you give them. I've got our photos up here, and then you're gonna title it. So I'm gonna title it nightstands, probably 2 nightstands. You want to kind of give as many possibilities. So someone might type in end tables or bedside tables, etc. So that is another thing that you can do, is kind of give it 2 titles. Now we've got to talk about the price. So all in, I'm at $48. Again, I didn't use all of the materials that I bought at Lowe's, and I'm going to be able to reuse some of those, but let's just say we're $50 in on these 2 nightstands. Let's think about how long it took me. These 2 nightstands altogether took me just about 2 hours to complete, from start to finish, between cleaning, priming, painting, all of the above, 2 hours. So if I am trying to shoot for a specific hourly amount, then I can gauge my price on that hourly amount. When you're first starting out, you might try for $20 to $25 for an hourly rate. When you get more and more experience, you can kind of continue to up that price. Right now, I like to try to get around $30 to $40 an hour. So that would put these at $60 to $80 on top of the material price. So 50 plus 60, that's 110, or 50 plus 80, that is $130. However, make sure that you're not underpricing the item that you have. Nightstands, at least in my area, go pretty fast, and they can go for a little bit of a higher price than $130. When you're first starting out, you're probably gonna underprice yourself, and that is totally okay. I know that a couple of people got some really great deals when I was first starting out. I think that I am going to be landing around the $175 area for pricing these. That gives me a little bit of room. I say price a tad bit higher than maybe your bottom line. That way, if someone asks you to go lower, you can do that. You can never go higher, but you can always drop the price. So I'm gonna go ahead and post these for $175 today, and we're gonna give it a couple of days and see what happens. I've got a bonus P for you guys: patience. Unfortunately, I was unable to sell these 2 nightstands before the video launched. However, this just brings a perfect situation when we need to practice patience. It is probably the hardest, most frustrating part about furniture flipping, and it has nothing to do with actually flipping the furniture. You have to be patient, patient, patient. I have patience, but when it comes to the furniture flipping, it's really hard for me to be patient. I just get so antsy, and I'm like, why isn't this selling? And I want to drop the price right away. Well, that's not always going to work either. And to be honest, I tried dropping the price of these nightstands a couple of times, and right now they're sitting still on Facebook Marketplace at $125. They've been listed for 2 days, and apparently the right buyer just hasn't seen them yet. But you have to stay patient because the right buyer is out there. I promise you guys, sometimes these flips take hours to sell. Sometimes these flips take days. Sometimes it takes weeks. And I've got a couple of pieces that I've even taken or are taking months to sell. And that is okay, because if you're willing to and you have a little bit of space to keep and hold on to these pieces, in order to get your right price, you're gonna have to wait, and that is all right. For me, I have a general guideline that I need to leave it on Facebook Marketplace listed at the price I had originally for 5 days before I go any lower. That gives it a little bit of time to have people see it, and then just even if people save it, it gives them a little bit of time to go back and be like, hey, I actually did want that, or whatever the case may be. Being patient with those 5 days, and then you can gauge it. Do you think it's gonna sell Usually, lately, I've been seeing that weekdays are the times that people are buying, and you can kind of just gauge that in your market. Continue to test out your market, be patient, you will get that profit. And I hope you learned a lot. There's a lot of beginners out there, and we really wanted to break it down. I hope you enjoyed the 4 Ps. If you guys enjoyed the 4 Ps and want to kind of get it broken down a little bit more in a little bit more compact format, I've got a link down below where all you got to do is enter your email address and we will send over a PDF of the 4 Ps plus my bonus P of furniture flipping to follow along on our journey of saving up for a down payment on a house. Get subscribed down below and also follow us over on Instagram because we love showing behind the scenes and more information such as this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.